begin. I just need an approval of today's agenda. Thank you, Brian.
Second.
Oh.
Third.
You want to fight about it?
Yeah, I kind of do, but
Okay.
in the interest of time.
Okay, we have another vote, so
Able
be
to fight.
faster, be faster. So we have a second. Thank you, Sean, for seconding it. Do we have a vote? Oh, that's the vote. I'm calling it. That was me calling it. Good. Yes?
Aye.
Do you like the agenda, George? Okay, good. So that's passed. And the approval of meeting minutes. Hi, Nancy.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Brian.
Second.
Oh, good job, Carl. Carl got it. And let's vote on it.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we're approved. And we do have public comment today in Jay said.
Amanda?
Your hand up.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Let me put my hand down. Thank you so much. I apologize. I tried to get in early and to get on the agenda, but I was by the skin of my teeth. So just wanted to come in for a quick introduction. My name's Amanda Normine. I am the president of Columbia County Hub. That's a local nonprofit that stands for Columbia County Helping Undo Barriers. Basically, our mission is around empowering youth of Columbia County, really around providing leadership programs, support, really anything to help these youth feel supported and empowered as they go through the rough part of their life, becoming an adult. Our newest project is one that is based around youth entrepreneurship. And we believe that there's power in taking something you love, making a career out of it. And we want to help a young person do that. We felt like this program really aligned with the mission of this group here. And so I just wanted to come get some information in front of you, let you guys know what we're up to. We're always looking for support, even just in kudos and recognition. We also are always looking for financial support when it comes to things like this. A quick overview, this program starts with training courses around business and financial planning. The end result will be a new business opening in Columbia County that will be owned and operated by a young person. Through the competition, contestants are partnered with established businesses, which are not in a competing but complementary space, trying to build and foster that mentorship relationship. And then, of course, the contest itself contains freestanding events as well as group meet and greets. And then the end result is the winner gets $12,500 in startup funds, $5,000 of which is grant dollars, $7,500 is low interest loan, which will be paid out over 3 years. Once they pay that back, we repeat the program in 2028. It is very similar to what St. Helens Economic Development Corporation put forth years ago. I think Hallows was the most recent winner. Before that was Vault Elite. So very similar, but our goal is for youth and adds in a lot of mentorship. I would love to send over some information for your group to just kind of look at and chew on. Our ask is either financial support or, like I said, at a minimum, just to have the group kind of stand behind us and say, yes, this is something we believe in. Give us your stamp of approval and maybe help us get the word out. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, so now we are moving on to 2.1, the elections. So exciting. NJ made me this direction form. You see that? It's single space. So I am now accepting nominations of yourself or another voting member for the position of Scappoose Economic Development Committee Chair or Vice Chair. Am I going to
Chair?
Okay.
I'll make a nomination to nominate Christine another term.
Thank you,
for
Brian.
chair.
Thank you, Brian.
I second that.
Oh, God. Thank you. Thank you. I have to ask everybody who
yeah.
they want as chair.
I'm not seconding them.
Christine, you would first ask if anyone else wants to nominate themselves or
Oh,
something
does any,
else.
Carl, do you want to nominate yourself as chair?
No.
George, Sean? And David,
No, thank you.
okay. So,
No, thank
I
you.
feel
This
like
is
this is
Paul.
Mad Libs.
Oh, Paul's on too.
Oh, Paul, hi, Paul.
Hi, I do not want to run, and I yes for Christine.
Okay, so which section do I go to at this point? Am I down to,
6.
no, that's what I thought. I skipped 2 through 5. Okay, so we've had many seconds, so now we need a vote.
Voting?
Yes, we're voting.
Okay. Yes, for
All in favor of Christine becoming chair.
Aye.
Aye.
Can't vote for myself.
Aye.
Paul? Any abstentions?
Aye.
Proposed? No, I think I've won.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I really wanted someone else to have an opportunity to do it. I would have guided you through the entire step. Okay, so vice chair. I nominate Carl. Anyone?
Second that.
Carl, do you accept?
Yes.
Oh, goody. What about Brian? He's been doing such a great job.
Fine with that. Time for you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Paul, David.
I nominate Brian just to have another horse in the race.
Paul.
I second on Brian.
Oh, now we have 2 and 2. It's going to be hot. Now what do we do?
Now you go to step 5.
5.
It's a
Step 5
little
is
choose
so
your own
big.
adventure.
Yeah.
Step 5 is so big. Okay, so you guys both have to provide each nominee with the opportunity to provide a brief statement. I'm still reading. To provide a brief statement of their qualifications and why they're interested in being vice chair.
I'm here to help.
It's-
So if
They're going rogue.
Brian, do you accept the nomination?
He wants it, it's his.
I'm happy to help.
Go.
Listen,
Brian, do you not accept?
I do not accept. Give me-
Okay.
Okay.
okay, then let's vote for Carl. All in favor of Carl? Aye.
Aye.
Paul and David?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, goody. Oh, Carl, congratulations. You are the new vice chair of the Southeast Economic Development Committee.
Excited.
I'm going to be gone in April.
A whole month. or just-
For that meeting.
We'll cancel it. Don't worry.
Okay. Oh, we're
Oh,
not
I mean, we
quitters.
won't cancel.
We're not
it.
quitters. Okay. So thank you very much. It's such an honor. I feel like I should have a tiara or something. Okay, so we are moving on to 2.2 unless there's further discussions about this. Nope. Okay, 2.2. I do believe this is either NJ or Lori Oliver. For code changes. You had a little bit
Yes.
discussion about this.
Yeah, so we did have a little brief discussion about this, but to go back, so at the last meeting, NJ and I did a little presentation of sort of the downtown overlay code and sort of the history of that. It was adopted in 1999, and then there's been 3 amendments since, so 2003, 2010, and 2018. I think Brian would attest to the fact, because he's been involved, I think, with every revision.
Yeah, at least a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, the code is adequate as is. And so there was kind of a discussion during the last meeting is, did it make sense to make major changes to the code at this point as part of the 50-year plan? Or did it make sense, I guess from staff's perspective, do we want to make this a standalone project, go out for a TGM grant, which don't worry, I'm going to explain all of it. The TGM grant is Transportation Growth Management. It's a joint grant between the Department of Land Conservation and Development, which is a state agency in charge of the land use program in the state, and ODOT, so DLCD and ODOT. Essentially, that's the type of grant that originally was applied for, that sort of set in motion the downtown overlay code initially. And so what that would do is fund a consultant to help us basically review the downtown overlay code, the boundaries of the downtown overlay. They do a workshop in the community to get citizen feedback. They would review our existing plans, planning documents, and then make suggestions in a report at the end, which then the city would choose which recommendations to adopt and put into motion. That being said, if there were specific changes that you wanted to look at now to make, that would be fine as well. I think it would be beneficial to have someone who is an expert at downtown planning look at this with us. The TGM grants are annual, so it's every year. It's not like we're, having to wait for, maybe a 2-year cycle or something. The grants are due, let's see. No, this one, I think this one was March. And so I would just propose if we went that route that we apply for that next cycle after we've adopted the 50-year plan. So we have staff capacity, to take on a new project. So, but I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on that. I think this is kind of, the TGM grant is also what funded the, I think it was the Tualatin plan. Let's see, Tualatin Town Center plan David shared with us last time. That was a TGM grant funded project as well. So it would be a similar type document that came out of that as what they had.
The other thing too, if
May I
I
ask
could
a
jump in real
question?
quick.
Oh, yep. David or Paul?
Sorry. Go ahead, Paul. It'll wait.
Oh, no, I just wanted to say I'm in favor of the TGM grant. And beyond just looking at the codes, like going up a level, really looking at a plan for a town center, wherever we could possibly have it, however small it is. I think it'd really greatly benefit the community to have professionals come in with a new eye and perspective on what solutions they could come up with.
That's nice.
Thank you, Paul. David?
I agree. And I was going to ask if we were just looking at code changes for the existing downtown core, or whether this might also include like a rezoning if necessary, whether it would extend that far.
To the extent that we might change the boundaries of that overlay, that does act as sort of not a zone change per se, but the overlay is another element of the zoning code. So yes, to that extent, it would definitely, at least in my opinion, I would think we would want to look at that.
I would support that.
Thank you.
Christine, could I jump in real quick?
Yes.
The other advantage of doing this the TGM route is that we would ideally have our branding work done before getting the downtown overlay code kicked off, which would allow us to know the kinds of design aesthetic standards that we would want in our downtown.
Yeah, and so the branding exercise isn't necessarily going to say like these are the types of aesthetics you need to be looking for. But if we have a sense of what the brand is or the theme is for the town, then we can share that with the consultants that are working on this, and they could then recommend aesthetics around that kind of a brand or theme that we've identified. And I think the timing would work out just right.
Brian Rosenthal. I have no issue with the consultant if that's the direction everybody wants to go. But there are a couple issues with the current thing
Sure, yeah.
that might be beneficial to try to resolve. Some of it we've resolved in the past, like we used to have a 20-foot height requirement for one-story buildings, which pushed up costs unnecessarily, which retarded development, and it didn't really provide a great aesthetic benefit. But there's some contradictory issues in the current code. For the aesthetics, it talks about street trees, awnings, flower baskets, and a variety of other things. But because we're requiring the buildings to be all the way up to the front of the property line, the tree requirement becomes problematic, especially when you combine it with the need of businesses for signage. Because with the awnings and the signage, you're pretty much blocking all the signs. And
Yeah,
and-
you,
and so I would like, if we're gonna hire consultants for this, I would actually like that maybe our committee could do part of a scope of work
mhm,
for them. Like, for instance, we might mention in the scope of work to benefit the businesses in our downtown district, current and future, as to not impact their marketability.
mhm.
Because it's great to line the streets with trees, but if nobody can see the businesses that are there, you're hurting the businesses, you're not helping them.
I agree. And I think it's also the type of trees.
Yeah, there's a variety, and we've played
Yeah.
around with it. Like, the trees I have were picked because they're not, council back in the day, they weren't on the approved list for Scappoose, but the council approved them because they weren't as tall.
Right.
And the height becomes an issue when you're requiring the buildings to be all the way up front, because then you end up with leaves on your roof.
Mhm.
And so, and there's just a variety of issues.
Yeah.
But I think that maybe an alternative would be like allowing flower baskets or something else that would give an aesthetic.
Yeah.
Like saying, like,
Yeah.
for instance, maybe trees could be possibly reduced or eliminated in some areas
Mhm.
if there are awnings, which weren't required, but were recommended,
Right.
and
And
Our
flower baskets.
baskets, something like
Yeah.
that. I also am very concerned about not pushing up costs on developers.
Correct.
And so what we want is, I would want to see as part of the scope of work is to keep, basically we're trying to maximize aesthetic appearance while simultaneously not creating an unreasonable burden on the developers.
Yes.
And that way we retard growth. So we can have this great plan that says we're gonna do all these great things, but then nobody will build it because they can't make any money.
Right.
Or somebody won't do it because they feel like their business doesn't have, good visibility. A great example of that would be the parcel in the corner there. One of the largest attributes of that parcel is that it has highway visibility.
Mm-hmm.
So if we required them to line trees in front of it, I'm not saying you are,
Mhm.
but if we did, then suddenly they lose one of their largest attributes to that parcel for marketing.
Right.
And so we've actually hurt those businesses, not helped them.
Yeah. And
Well, no, trees have a place. So I'm
they
not saying
do.
no
They do.
trees.
No, exactly. But there has to be a balance
There has to
there,
be.
right?
There has to be a balance. And so I don't, so if we have the time until we're going to do
Mhm.
this program, I was just thinking that maybe our committee could get involved into part of the scope of work.
Mhm.
'Cause I assume you're going to give the consultants, a scope of work of what you want.
Sure. Part of the RFP would include a scope. Yeah.
Yeah, and so part of it might be to not, to improve or at least not
Mhm.
harm marketability of existing and future businesses.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
things like that. And then maybe some suggestions. And then,
Mhm.
and they may come back and say these suggestions don't work because of this, this, and this, and
Sure.
that's fair.
Sure.
But,
Well,
but-
we'll worry about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Lynn.
Well, and I think too, just that, in the current code, whereas the spacing for street trees typically isn't more than, say, 20 to 25 feet, downtown overlay allows, I think they're 30 to 35 feet distance.
we made it a little wider at one point.
Yeah, you made it a little wider, and then there is the option to swap out flower baskets for trees in the current code as well. So,
I thought that was only in part of the downtown overlay. I don't think it's in all of it.
yeah, I don't recall.
I think it's.
Nobody's ever elected to do that. So.
Yeah, no one's ever elected to do it.
Yeah.
And so part of this is hypothetical.
Yeah.
But like the other issues, like with awnings and trees, are if you put an awning and you don't want a metal awning because they look kind of tinny.
Yeah.
Put a cloth awning right next to a tree, well, it's going to moss it out, and they're
Mhm.
going to be looking pretty gross after a couple of years.
Mhm.
And so
Well,
there's,
your next building will consider this.
anyhow.
Okay, no, those are great ideas. We'll capture those as this is moving forward. And did anyone else have input on this? Paul?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I
just,
wanted-
I'm sorry. Oh,
Sorry,
Um,
go ahead.
just to comment on Brian's comment.
Okay.
So in Sandy, they came up with the Sandy style aesthetic, and you do not need to do it as a developer. But if you want your urban renewal funds, then you use the Sandy style aesthetic, which has worked incredibly well for them. So, and as we know right now, our urban renewal funding and what we say as a criteria is kind of loose. And to tie all this work in with urban renewal, I think would be a great thing, but I'd love Brian's opinion from a developer standpoint.
I actually have a little sheet of some recommendations for the urban renewal growth program criteria.
Oh,
Brought with
perfect.
Me today.
Don't jump ahead. That's too
No,
quick.
no, I know.
Yeah.
But, I actually, the only issue with that idea, and it's not a bad idea, is we really don't have the kind of money that's gonna really incentivize somebody. I think, if you correct me if I'm wrong, Lori, but I think the whole fund has like $40,000 in it.
No, we've got a whole bunch.
So I pulled the
Yeah.
budget and it's what,
Or up to 6.
76,000?
Oh, so we picked up some more off the.
About a little less than 30,000 gets added at the beginning of a fiscal.
I think there could be, I think that could be at least partially,
Hmm.
what Paul was saying could be partially included and it would be positive. I didn't include it in my list because I was trying to keep it simple.
Mhm.
I think especially that might be criteria for existing structures or businesses,
Mhm.
is that you bring it up to the current or at least as much as you can.
Right.
I actually had something like that on my list and then I took it off because I didn't feel like I wanted to get into with just my opinions
Mhm.
being micromanaging this. I know. But anyhow,
Okay.
but there is some validity in that. It could give some incentives.
Right.
And especially for existing, I think we're gonna, like, if you're doing a $2 million project, getting $25,000 is not gonna really change anything.
Right.
If you're trying to do,
2.3.
but if you're trying to do a smaller project, then suddenly that money could matter. Okay.
Exactly.
I know you are.
I'm gonna
You
poke
would?
And then,
you next time. Okay, David. David has something to say. Where are you? We need you in the 2.3.
David?
Sorry, I was muted. Now I'm unmuted. I'm just outside. I wanted to say that I've said it before, but also when you are revising the code, that it should allow safety valves for paying in lieu of performance, so that you don't get locked into a situation where, like in Portland, where the forestry department wants a tree of a certain type, and then the transportation department won't allow the trees of those types, and you send the developer back and forth between two different fiefdoms, and nobody's going to budge, and so nothing gets built because
The good news
you have,
is,
yeah.
the good news is, David, we're all in the same building and we sit next to each other. But I hear
I
what you're
know.
saying. I hear what you're saying, and that's a valid point for sure.
David,
So
you should
if
come
you-
inside.
I will in a minute. So I will be there shortly,
Okay,
and that is all. Thank you very much.
thank you.
I had a quick question.
Trees.
What?
Trees.
It's not about trees. Last month, I mean, these code changes are going forward anyway, right? We talked, it's time for a revision.
So we're doing a lot of code changes as part of the 50-year plan, but we don't have to touch this particular chapter. Mhm.
Oh, this is really a decision. If we want to make changes, this is a really good time and a consultant's a really good idea for it.
Are you talking about the TGM process? Thank you. Yeah. Was that a question?
It was a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
But,
didn't.
like, what's the alternative? Just doing it ourselves?
So the alternative is we or you as a committee review the code now, see if there's things that you would like to review, maybe look at some other downtown overlay codes, and in sort of it becomes this very localized process with the people in the room here.
I would like guidance from an
Yeah.
expert.
Correct. That's the thought.
think
That's the
that's-
thought, is let's bring someone in who does this every day and has really good ideas and have seen what works, can bring examples, and then we go from there and work.
Get grant money to hire them anyway.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and we would likely get funded for a grant like this.
We have to wait a year.
They're every year. And so if we're rolling up all the adoption process of the 50-year plan next fall, we would go for it the following year, which would be the next spring.
So the one way, I'm all on board for the consultant. The only way I'm not for it is if we can't get funding. If we
Mhm.
can't get funding, I feel like this is not such a horrifically complicated process that we couldn't handle it. And I wouldn't feel like we should be pulling money out of building sidewalks in areas in town that don't have sidewalks to pay for consultants.
The gas tax.
For whatever we
Some.
have, yeah.
Um,
Some. So I guess my thought is, let's go along the path,
Sure,
the path
yeah,
of,
yeah.
of trying to do it as a grant. That if for any reason we can't get grant money,
Sure.
because we've been excluded before on grants because our incomes are too high as a
But now we have-
community.
This one is so the grant criteria are not based on that.
Okay, so we should be okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, and then, so as long as we can get it, then let's just go that.
Sure.
If we can get it for free, then
Sure.
it's just information.
Yep.
Let's go for it.
Sounds
Oh,
good.
look who's here. Okay. We're not moving on. Are we at 2.3?
Yeah, I think we can go ahead into that. There's a nice kind of tie-in because it was really helpful, Christine, when we met earlier this week to really finally understand sort of what you were asking for as far as that tie-in between downtown overlay and urban renewal grants. And so NJ's going to present on the next one. He did provide you all with some mapping that we're going to look at next.
So officially into 2.3, when will we talk about the Travel Oregon, and could we use Travel Oregon for part of that? I mean, it will certainly improve our downtown.
Part of down.
For the grants, if we can get that grant sooner.
So he's going to talk about that. I don't know that the grant that Wella sent the email about would do what we're talking about, but we could ask about that. The thing that we need to be aware of as staff is our capacity. So while we're with the 50-year plan, we wouldn't be pursuing other grant funding. Now, I say that, and then I say how we're going to pursue Wella's grant funding. However, it's looking like that could potentially be more of like a joint project with several cities in the county. Similar to, the downtown workshop that you guys recently did on tourism, if we can sort of,
City.
they did. I don't,
Ours was definitely murals.
yes.
At the same time, every idea had all the cities effectively.
I think there was some overlap, but my thought was that if we did that, number one, it does not have a cash match, which is very helpful for us. And number two, it might not be that heavy of a lift for staff if it's like a mural project, as opposed to like a code revision and like something that's going to be a lot more intense on staff. So I don't think we have the capacity to do a really in-depth grant until 50-year plan's over.
Okay.
And then NJ will talk about that Travel Oregon grant at the end of his presentation.
Okay. So are we on 2.3?
I think we're on 2.3.
Okay.
I just was gonna point,
Yes.
if we're gonna talk about Travel Oregon later, we can, I was gonna point out that we have about 2 weeks to do a limit.
I know. I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, and Alex is
August
out of
4th.
town, so we have a little, yeah, I'm trying to get clear on what we're, cleared to do.
Just more on that, and I know, I'm sorry, I'm deviating, but we did have that, I can't remember the gentleman's name, who did come in and assess our city, and he does all of the Oregon
Yes,
cities, and he
yes.
had opinion, so I don't know, can we utilize him in lieu of a
Or,
consultant? This is his job, right? To come into.
again, it's a
into-
very intense process to do, and we just need staff capacity.
Okay.
So we still need to wrap up one project before we do a deep dive into another one, is I guess my point.
Wouldn't we also want to get some of our branding done
Mhm.
before?
Indeed.
So
Yeah, it's kind of it's definitely a timing thing too.
All right, NJ.
Are we
you're free.
2.3ing?
You're free.
Okay, 2.3 time.
woohoo.
It's on.
All right, so you all see on your agendas that the Economic Development Committee has been invited by the Urban Renewal Agency to participate in a joint work session on August 7th, which is Monday at 6 p.m.
I hope everyone can come.
Yes, it's going to be a very, very important meeting because what we're going to do is staff is going to, we're in the process right now of putting together a new application form that urban renewal grant applicants are going to be asked to fill out. And so this is, not only important for like the criteria, but also the information we're getting from the applicant. Because, I know like the agency and the EDC, have some concerns about like, it's a $2 million project. What specific things are you looking for grant funding on? So information that requests that is in there. And so again, think of it as like not just criteria, but also what's going to be asked, and then how they get processed. So the new process that involves an economic development committee reviewing as a first look the grant applications, that's in this criteria and program design as well. So it's kind of all inclusive. It gets the questions and the guidelines in one document, which was not done before. But when we present this, we're gonna, walk you through it and say, look, point you out to what's new. But then we're looking mainly after the first 10 minutes or so, we're gonna be looking for your ideas of how to make it better. Like what things you want to see us ask applicants, or what things you want us to require in their submittals. So after staff does a brief 10-minute presentation, we're really looking for EDC and the URA's feedback for the next remainder of that hour. So let's see. So I wanted to, since we're talking about downtown overlay, and would you pass that around? Since we're talking about downtown overlay and urban renewal and how they relate a little bit, I put together an approximate map of the shared boundary between the downtown overlay and the urban renewal district. So this is where they both overlap each other.
They're the same?
It's just the areas. Yep. This is just the areas that are the same for anybody.
Exactly.
Same for the same.
Also, just for any member that may not be too familiar with the downtown overlay, there are different tiers of the downtown overlay. So this is all tiers of the downtown overlay, correct?
Mhm.
So some tiers are very mild, like going down Second Street, going that direction. It's a different tier than the commercially zoned parts of it.
We don't call them tiers per se. We didn't actually, I think there was discussion about that, but it's
And it may
not.
get changed.
Yeah, it's not currently, but like in other words, decorative lighting isn't required on Second, where it would be required on East Columbia and First Street on the other side of the highway.
Yeah, this is all of downtown overlay, all of current urban renewal district, because some of the maps you see of the UR district also has like future expansion of the district.
This is just where they overlap and are the same. In other words, urban renewal grant dollars can be used within this boundary.
I get it. Okay, so the question is, if the urban renewal, if downtown overlay requires decorative lighting, and why are we not doing that now?
We do have new development do that as part of their project.
We are not putting it in the older.
We don't put it in the older, it comes with new,
Okay.
with new development.
What happened with the light project the city was working on? Did you decide?
In 2.2.
Okay, we'll stay on.
I can give you an update.
I can give you a quick answer. So we've reached out and we've received responses that 2 suppliers or distributors have received our request for quote. So they're putting that together.
Okay.
It was the big holdup was internal conversations between city staff and PUD staff to sort of come to a unwritten agreement on who's going to do what parts of this project. The current thought is that city is going to do all the work to like write the grant and bring them in. PUD maintains them and bills the city. That's the current idea. But it took a while to get there. So, Brian, I know you said you had a list of things that you want to make sure are included. We can.
It's not really make sure that they're more like a discussion point.
Yeah.
Oh, we have more handouts.
Mhm.
think
Thank you, sir.
so, and again, this,
Fired up today.
we have a limited amount of money. And so it's more, a little more than I realized. I thought we're closer to 50,000, but my idea was we didn't want to give all our money away to one group. So I thought we should, as part of this, there should be a cap.
Hmm.
So that at least, and that cap can be raised over time if there's more funds available.
Mhm.
I threw the number out there of 25,000 for now. You know, it's a discussion, but there should be a cap of some sort. So somebody doesn't come in and say, oh, you've got 79,000. It just so happens that I need exactly $79,000 for my project.
Well, make or break.
And it'll be a make or break deal. And without this 79,000, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And then somebody comes along a week later and says, oh, I've got this great idea. It's going to make everything look beautiful. It only costs $5,000.
Right.
We're like, well, sorry, we're out of money. So set a cap, and the cap can be raised over time. It's got to, all grants should be for a specific purpose and not for research, engineering, or design phase. And the reason I said that is there's always people out there with all these pie in the sky ideas of what they're going to do. And then nothing ever happens.
Mm.
So it's a utilization of money. It's, if they don't have any skin in the game, and they can't get it past their design, research, engineering phase, then there's a very good chance it's never going to happen. Why would we spend money if they're not willing to spend their money?
Could we require them to have, before they ask the committee, the Urban Renewal Agency, for money, that they'd already gone through Lori?
That's one of our questions
That's
on.
what-
the
Yeah,
grant form.
that was something I flagged as well, just because sort of the draft that NJ's been working on identified sort of like a timeline when they need to have the project completed, which if they're not through land use yet, they might not be able to meet that.
You
I
have
would
to
agree with
approve it.
that.
Yeah.
Now, there's another division. There's a division where they've been approved by planning, and then there's a division where they have their building permits, which sometimes is almost synonymous, but not always necessarily.
Not usually, yeah.
And so one of the questions for the group is, are we okay? Do we want to say they have to have their building permits in place?
I wouldn't think so, just because possibly, depending on what they're awarded, maybe their project changes slightly, or, I mean, if they have building permits, they don't need a grant, right?
Well, the question is, do they have the resources to complete the project?
Right.
So the grant would do that. I mean, I'd be okay if we said they could apply after the design phase,
Hmm.
but that the funds would not be released until after they have the building permit.
It is a reimbursement based. They would have to spend the money before they got,
Okay, so
money.
as long as it's reimbursement, then I don't see a big deal.
And also, this isn't necessarily the way the new
Let's talk.
criteria will work, but right now, the Urban Renewal Grant Program requires $1 to $1 matching.
Yeah,
How do you manage that? Like if I want something and
So you give a project cost at the beginning when you're looking for approval, and then once you've actually like are in the project and spending money, you give project receipts of like what's been paid, and then the city will only reimburse up to half of that.
no, that actually, well, David had something he wanted to say. Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna ask if we were only including. So, whether usually urban renewal is about people and not. So some more here towards construction permits where we're
the agency will decide.
So
it's both.
yeah, so right now, the way the grant program works is that there's one grant for new development and one grant for business development or existing. And right now, again, right, these are all, everything I'm saying is what it is right now. Right now, business development is a max of a $7,000 grant, whereas new development is a max of a $50,000 grant.
50,000 seems high to me, given we have 70-some thousand total. One person could burn.
The only thing is though, like if there was a project that like council and the agency and EDC was really, really, really wanting to support.
On number 3, so I differ from the current a little. I'm saying that there should be matching after $5,000.
Mm.
So if I would like to see it possible where this isn't just something for building owners, but this is also for business owners. So if a business owner
is.
says, well, it is, but they're not going to want to put large amounts of money into
True.
things. So if, at least give it a possibility for them. So let's say you're across the highway and you have an awning that is literally obliterated. And the building owner's like, well, I'm not paying for that.
Right.
And you could replace that awning for a couple $1,000s.
Mhm.
It would provide a nice aesthetic value for the community
Mhm.
without it being necessarily a tremendous cash investment. And so there could, I'm not saying that it's like, none of these criteria should be automatic approval if you meet them all. It's more at, the discretion of,
Well, and it sets some criteria, which is going to be helpful when the agency's actually trying to award, which was sort of the issue last time, is because there's no criteria. It was really hard to make that decision. So that it outlines things that,
it gives you
Yeah.
rails to kind of go along.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah. And so I don't know if we want, and the $5,000 doesn't have to be the number. It could be 2,500 or whatever, but it could be an opportunity for a business, not a
Mhm.
building owner, to do a small improvement that might
Yeah.
improve aesthetics without that. Because again, the idea behind this program when we first worked on it as a committee was we were trying to,
Just the aesthetics.
with aesthetics, to
Mhm.
improve the marketability of our town as a whole. The next thing is, no grants should be provided for equipment or interior improvements.
No printer? I really needed a new printer.
Yeah, see, that doesn't provide an aesthetic improvement. And the reason I put that in on my list was I didn't want, the idea is this is supposed to have a benefit to the aesthetic improvement and business viability of the community as a whole. And Christine's printer is not going to really help the community. It helps Christine, but doesn't help
It
the
does.
community. And that's why number 6 there is all grants shall be a benefit to Scappoose as a whole.
I agree.
Well, and I think you skipped over 4, which was very important as well.
All grants projects shall have an aesthetic appearance component to the exterior of the building / business.
Yeah.
And so that's like the nut of it, really, is that we're looking for improvement in appearance to increase the marketability of our town and the quality of life for our citizens and business members.
So we can be proud of our town
Right.
and not go, oh yeah, we
Yeah.
live in that truck.
And so these are my ideas.
Mhm.
I'm not, like I said, I'm not, somebody says, well, 5,000 is too high without matching, let's make it 4, 3, 2, whatever the number is, but make it available.
Mhm.
There are small businesses where a small investment of $2,000 or $3,000 is a lot of money to them.
Oh, yeah.
They might have an idea for a way to make their appearance of their business to be a lot better for the community, and they benefit by their business prospering, and the community benefits in that we look better.
Mhm.
So,
I completely agree.
so
So I'd like to tag something on to that, comment about the awning. So if it's business driven, not property driven, did not have the business on the awning. So like if the business becomes.
I see, you're saying it's becoming advertising.
Yeah, it's paying for their advertising instead of.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that's completely reasonable, because the second that business leaves,
Yeah,
Mhm.
when it
You-
becomes defunct, then you're just advertising that it's a.
or they moved, and that's 100%. So maybe something in there saying, no advertising included in grant money.
Oh, I like that.
So no painting, no mural with your name of your building on the side, your business on the side. No awning with your name, no beautiful bench with your name.
No signage.
Yeah, no signage,
You have to go to Christine's printer.
no Christine's print with her name.
Well, that's how you get the sign printed.
Espresso machines.
Yeah, so these are all really, really good ideas, and we're writing these down. I would really encourage you all to bring these to the Urban Renewal Agency meeting in August.
What we could do too is include some that have already been identified by the EDC in the packet. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will not unfortunately be able to be at that meeting. I will be in Arizona.
Okay, well then, thank you for bringing
That's
that.
why, part of the reason
Yeah.
I brought this is
Yeah.
I figured I wouldn't be there, so.
Right.
Fair enough.
Is this going to be available to homeowners, residential?
No. Business.
So we probably should specify that though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we,
That this, because there are areas that are in the
There's
district.
Still residential.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so we should probably specify that this is for commercial and industrial. There's a little bit of industrial land in this zone, but not much.
it is, yeah.
So commercial,
MJ,
industrial.
didn't you and I talk about tier 1 and tier 2?
Yeah, so to give you all a little sneak peek before it comes out, you're not hearing this from me, but
recorded, dude.
I'm well aware. I typed the minutes. I'm well aware.
Yeah, it's on YouTube now, so.
So the way we're proposing it being structured is that there are projects of primary preference, aesthetic improvements are in that. And then there's projects of secondary preference, and then there's ineligible projects. Ineligible projects, if we find
Signage.
some, yes, potentially.
Residential. yeah.
Right, residential. So the other thing is like, equipment that does not remain with the structure. So everyone loved to talk about the espresso machine, but like stuff like that, that can easily leave the building and the district.
Well, yeah, I was really hoping that we would have, this would be for exterior only,
Oh.
not interior.
Paul has his hand up.
I'm sorry.
Hi, Paul.
Oh, yeah. So residential is allowed in commercial zones. Like, so for instance, apartment complex. What do we want to do about stuff like that? I mean, it's not really, usually you're looking at, commercial businesses that you're trying to help, with our economy, not necessarily having another Candlelight come in and, let's say want our urban renewal money. So I'd love to discuss that with the group.
Well, one thing I would just point out is that as far as what's in the urban renewal plan for projects, because you can't spend money, urban renewal dollars, if it's not an identified project in the plan. And so one of the projects that is in the plan, however, just so you're aware, is housing or mixed use grants or loans. So that is an identified project. Now, we could narrow that down to say, the agency is going to have a strong preference for mixed use if it's housing, so that you're still getting your commercial on the bottom floor, and building up that commercial presence in the city. But that is an identified project currently in the plan.
I would like to see a preference, if possible, for the strip on Highway 30 where the pet store is and all of that.
Mm.
Because that has always been one of the focuses. She calls it Sinrow. I call it our older part of town.
Is what it is.
But well, pet store's not a sin. But
So glad
there
you-
is residential mixed in there. But maybe one of the preferences we could
Mhm.
put is for that, list that area
Yeah.
on the
Yeah,
highway.
Identify that particular area
Area,
as a focal point.
Yeah, that's like really an area that we'd
I
like
think
to.
my question was, if we're having new construction come in, again, the idea of this is renewal. So I would think everything tier 1 is not something that's coming in. Tier 1 would be, or tier 2 would be something for the larger projects.
And that's how that's how he's sort of formatted it currently in the draft
Tier
form.
1 is like purely aesthetics, and
Updates.
let's clean up that
Right.
from the Wiggy to the pet store.
Right,
Like-
but the thing to consider though is that, having new development, if it's like a really old building that needs, maybe just needs to be torn down, like that is aesthetic improvements.
One thing which I didn't put on my list, but I thought of putting on my list, and I'm interested to see what everybody else feels about this. I thought that putting for new construction, we might not say it must be for aesthetic improvements that exceed code. In other words, if you're just going to build it,
Oh, gotcha.
you get
Okay.
nothing.
Right.
Because a lot of the areas,
That's
some
the minimum requirement.
it's a minimum requirement. They're going to have to do it anyhow. So we're really not getting anything as a community out of that, because that's just like you got to put in sidewalks.
Right.
You're going to get it anyway. So we're just transferring, we're doing a public-private partnership where the private takes the profit and the public pays for it. If we said exceeding code, then we would then be buying something. That would be a justification to give some money to new construction, because we're now going to get something. So like, for instance, if somebody builds a little like bench park area that's not required in code, as
Mhm.
part of their development, then it's reasonable that as for a new development that they might get some money. But if they're just going to put siding on it, that's the type of,
Right. That's similar to what Paul was bringing up earlier. Mhm.
Other step further, he was talking about apartment being, residential. We had said, well, we don't want to do residential. And apartments. So there are some very ugly apartments. Andy,
Mhm.
trying to identify anything that needs help. But, for example, maybe anything that's a 5-plex or bigger is considered digital. That might be something where renewal dollars would benefit that particular property owner.
I mean, however we set up the criteria too, even if it is some sort of residential, they still would have to state how their,
Right.
you know, how their project is meeting those criteria, which is going to identify, which is going to identify the things that the urban renewal district said were the goals of the project to begin with. So somehow they're going to have to tie it back, which means probably if it's strictly residential, they may not be able to to meet those criteria. Whereas it's mixed use, they probably could. So
There's-
I think Paul had a. Paul?
Well, no, I think I was pretty clear, but it's it's up for discussion what we want to do. I mean, with regards to that, I mean, I'm not saying it should be either way. I mean, at this point, there's enough discussion that maybe that's why I kind of go back to, does all this tie in with, bring a consultant in and looking at everything? I mean, all together. We're kind of making these little changes here and there and all these different things that are disparate. I'm like, it's kind of concerning to me, right? So like we have the urban renewal, we have the downtown overlay, we have aesthetic standards, we have, a possible town center type thing. I mean, don't they all work together? I mean, we're kind of making these little pick and choose with these little cherry things, and we don't have a big grand vision. I guess that's my only concern about this whole discussion.
They do absolutely all go together. Right now, we're talking about the urban renewal grant criteria. So yes, everything plays together. I mean, we do have a plan. We have the downtown overlay code. That's our current plan. It can be approved upon, and we have a plan to move forward with that when the timing is right. But we do have this pot of money that could go towards existing, development in the meantime to get some aesthetic improvements done, hopefully.
Yeah.
Right.
And we need to kind of move forward with this. One thing.
My only thing is, hold on 1 second, Brian. Hold on, just let me get back. My only thing is that like you look at Sandy, and they didn't just, they really had a focus. They said, hey, here's how we brand it. Here's how we want to look. And then they really had a vision. I mean, you could selectively choose how much you want, but it was all under the same vision. That's my point, is that so everything looked cohesive. It wasn't like, well, if one building owner thinks pink is amazing, then they can go ahead and do pink, and pink buildings all they want currently. But in the Sandy plan, it was like, well, it's going to be this type of aesthetic. These are the kind of awnings you're going to use. These are the kinds, whatever. And it made the town go from kind of, let's say a little bit older looking, not very charming, to something that really looks connected now. And that's my whole point of this. It's like, hey, yeah, we got to move forward. We got to move forward. But are we going to be happy with just like, okay, great, someone painted it pink. Oh, wow, terrific. Well, we can't tell them what color is cool. That's my only concern.
Can we? I know, Jeff, can we dictate color? Because
No.
I don't like the pink part, so we should add that.
So again, this goes back to finishing. This is all a timing issue, right? So it's finishing the branding, and then it's getting the TGM grant, updating the aesthetic standards. So it's all going to be in process, but it is a timing issue right now. That would be an agency decision. Do we want to not issue any of these grants while we wait for that work? That's a possibility.
Yeah, the other thing too is that that's why the urban renewal grant criteria doesn't speak to what the standards are, because it can't, because that work hasn't really been done, like Paul's saying.
Will
And
that,
Jeff, what were you gonna?
I think we can change the criteria at any time,
Mm-hmm,
but we need to move forward. Otherwise, stuff will not get done.
mm-hmm.
And we do have several aesthetic problems that need to be corrected. And
Mm-hmm.
if we're going to wait until we have the branding exercise done and the grant, we're 2 to 3 years down the road.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree with that. So I think that just at least amending whatever we have to dictate specific colors. So I mean, we can come up with a tasteful common theme that regardless of what our big picture branding, yes, of course.
Can we just not approve something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Rather than
So-
making
so-
colors, like,
so-
we don't like that color.
Yeah.
it's not getting approved.
You can do that.
Agency, like,
There's
Yeah.
guidelines, but there's no, like, if you check all these boxes, you will get. one.
No.
that's why it's like of primary preference.
Potentially- but
Yeah, there's two different
potentially
realms. There's
sometimes
like,
the Agency might like pink and then they would approve it.
There's only one.
And
that's their
pink doesn't
decision.
Get you pink.
Funny, Brian.
yeah, but anyway, like that's why there are two different realms. There's like the of primary preference, those are sort of softer, those, depending on agency discretion. And then there's like hardline requirements. So when we're thinking about things, like we need to think about like what's a hardline requirement, and then what can be, moved around a little bit depending on the project.
Like having a scope of work would be a hard line requirement. They don't have a scope of work,
Right,
Correct,
not going to
yeah.
get funding.
Yeah.
exactly.
So,
Something that we did discuss in our pre-meeting. Can I talk about our pre-meeting in our meeting? So we talked about if we only knew a contractor who we could offer some money to continue to do like a whole cohesive project, like let's just say the Wiggy to the pet store. If we only knew a contractor who could take on a project like that and utilize these dollars, because the point was made that no one building owner, obviously they don't care that they are dumpy and they're not going to do any additional work. But if we were offering through our wonderful contractor, our hero, to go in and do that work for them,
If you were the exercise, the C word, condemnation.
that was a
oh,
different.
no, the city doesn't do
Yeah,
that.
like, which one
No
was that?
condemnation.
So yeah,
I would suggest that, but
Oh, are you talking about for the wig?
so yeah, just for general information, this gets sticky because you all are now a recommendation body of these grants. We're talking about who we're going to award them to, so let's just be mindful of that.
No, it wasn't necessarily,
So-
it was, so can we have that collective, one person do that work? Because as it was
Right.
very well stated, they're not going to do the work themselves.
So the regards to those properties that I think individuality of each structure that anyway, in Portland, we have an eclectic mix. Andy went through and kind of tried to make it all monotone and
Cohesive.
or vanilla. And so you can do it a different way and it would still look better too. It doesn't have to be simple.
This is going backwards, but on the apartment issue, the more I think about it, I strongly agree with Lori that mixed use is the best use of that because a lot of those buildings along the highway are apartments above.
Right.
And so we don't want to exclude those by not allowing mixed use.
Good point.
And
On top of the Longfellows.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I think from a construction standpoint, cost-wise, mixed use is more costly to build. And so if you're wanting to incentivize, say a mixed-use building here on this corner or something, they're the ones that are going to need the help as opposed to just strict residential, apartment building that's providing the minimum according to our code. So it would make sense probably to allow some funding for a mixed use as opposed to just strictly apartments.
yeah, and then
At least, in this corridor
Yeah.
we're talking
I
about.
agree with that.
but I also do like the idea for new construction that it should be for exceeding code. The more I think about it,
I like that too.
because otherwise we're giving money for something we don't have to give money for.
Yeah. Mhm,
We're going to get it.
mhm.
So we are having this discussion, obviously NJ's making very, very careful notes, and he will be able to communicate that to the agency during that April 7th meeting.
August.
August, I knew. it was
August
a month.
8th, I
Beg your
believe.
pardon.
There's a-
Excuse me, hi, sorry, I've had my hand up for a while. I'm a little
Yes.
confused why waiting, even, let's just say we have to wait 2 years. I mean, then we're gonna have the same amount of money. We're gonna have now a nice big pool, and then we're gonna have a focus. I mean, Christine, if someone comes in and says, we're gonna paint the building and we're gonna do all this stuff, we don't know what color yet, blah, blah, blah. I mean, right now, they would probably get urban renewal money, and then they might decide later, oh, you know what, we want it pink. So if we're going to do like a half effort and say, well, let's look at maybe colors or whatever, why don't we just wait and do it correctly and then really get a unified look and feel to really help our town like come together? I mean, it's just 2 years, and then we'll have more money in the pot with a brand new plan, brand new branding, brand new identity, all this cool stuff, get everyone motivated about, hey, we have this aesthetic, we have this look, there'll be actually a movement around it. We'll have a lot of money, we'll have a nice pot of money, and use that as a big thing, as opposed to like doing these little steps that really might send us down a road that is not that great. I don't know. I just don't see why we're trying to push just because we can do it today.
I just to clarify, because I was saying no. I agree with what you're saying, Paul. I think that is a viable option. I don't disagree with what you're saying at all. I just want to clarify that to what you had just said, that if someone proposed to do facade improvements and said they're going to do it a certain color and then they change color later, we would not reimburse them. If we had approved them for one color and then they changed to pink later, they would not get reimbursed. So we do have, the ability to say no based on their material board they bring in that shows things that we're not interested in this interim before we have our standards figured out. We would have a lot of discretion there. But to Paul's point, I think that this is an issue that the agency and EDC need to discuss on the 7th, because it's, a valid point.
I mean, there could take a middle road, which is we do go forward, but it's not, we don't look at it like we got a pile of money to burn. And
Yeah, we don't have to approve everything.
and if we don't spend all our money, that's fine.
Just
We'll use it
rolls.
later.
Yeah, it rolls.
And so instead of it looking at it like, oh, we got to spend this money because we got this money, it's not a use it or lose it.
No.
It's a situation where if something really fits in and we could see it being part of the future for Scappoose, no matter what,
Yep.
then we fund it. If it's a meh, then
Yeah.
maybe we don't, and we wait to find out
We
what's going to go on.
We certainly have it at our discretion, but as we've already pointed out, there are many, many buildings in our tiny town that any kind of lipstick would look nice.
Like, I would really like to see the Wigwam get some sort of a more permanent structure for their outdoor seating.
That's
That would be a major
the
improvement.
tent.
let
The
them-
tent should be going by the end of the month.
And we
They
let
are
them know,
already
we
doing
let
that.
them know about the program too.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's being said right now is sort of why EDC and the Urban Renewal Agency are both involved in the approval process. It's for like the business-minded folks like yourself, and then the more overall, they're elected as counselors, the more overall minded to both have a step in the process and a say in what gets approved and what we say no to.
And I just think it gives us the opportunity to review it a little more
Yeah.
closely, and they only
Exactly.
have an hour.
Yeah, no,
Well,
this
and
was a good conversation today, just to know kind of your thoughts on it. Yeah.
And the agency does, like, they've pushed like the food cart pod. If they don't have enough time or don't have enough information or want to change something with the process, they've said we're not making a decision right now.
So I have a quick suggestion. So we're talking about putting lipstick on a pig in a sense. So we're calling the downtown off of Highway 30. So the liquor store and all of that is considered downtown. Have we thought of?
It's a portion, it's a port. So the map here shows, yeah.
But we're considering that
Yeah.
the overlay. Have we at all thought about if we want to do more for the downtown, we use this area here, we're talking about new buildings and relocate those buildings? I mean,
Ooh,
I, for one,
I
don't
like
want to go sit at the Wigwam on Highway 30.
Nobody does.
So I just a thought, have we thought about that at all? Because to me, when you tell me downtown, that's not downtown.
I don't
That's a
think
highway.
that we're considering that downtown. We're just, that seemingly is our unesthetic part of our.
Okay, and I'm just asking.
area.
Yeah, and
Yeah, it's
I think it's considered part of our downtown.
part, it's a
but not
part.
our downtown.
Okay, okay.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Okay.
the downtown overlay is probably the closest thing we have to a defined downtown.
It is. I mean, I think
Still
for
not-
all intents and purposes, people would consider right here,
Okay.
you know, downtown, because we have a Heritage Park and that's where, you know, movies in the park, we have events, farmers market. But
Everyone's favorite.
it doesn't just have to be the strip, right? So there's portions on the other side of Highway 30 as well. But as far as relocating buildings, that would have to be, again, an identified project within the urban renewal plan. And it could be that in later years, when we're getting a lot more money into that fund, that we seriously consider some of those things, you know, buying certain lots in the city, you know, and revitalizing those buildings. That is a use for urban renewal dollars in some cities. So,
Also suggest adding, for example, the notice that the long block on Northeast First, where Columbia Feed, so as part of that, it's been that way for a long time. I wouldn't be opposed, even though there's no structure there and it's not historic, and that maybe there's a way to incentivize construction on parcels that are kind of critical to getting some momentum going, like paying for service development charges
mhm.
or something.
Do you mean the gravel lot right here that's vacant? Yeah, yeah.
So, and I'm not sure. You could say that certain properties would be given preference, or
Yes, you
say
could.
certain properties don't have to do the dollar matching.
I hesitate not to do that because what you often end up doing is just increasing the value of the land. And then what you do is it's a wealth transfer. Because now that lot's worth more. And so it doesn't necessarily get the development done.
Well,
It's
it
just the
has to
value.
get the development done. It has to be at the time the project is moving forward, or else you're right. It's
If
not,
you did it today.
yeah.
You said if we put it into our actual plan, now you've just increased the value of the land. So the city is going to take a loss in the development fees, but it's not causing development. It's just increasing the value of a raw piece of land.
Yeah, no, we want it with the development that we've identified that we want, like,
What I'm
you
saying
know.
is you couldn't put it into our actual plan. You'd have,
No, it's very vague. It's like, you know, development, improvement, grants, you know, it's vague in our plan, for that purpose, so that there's more flexibility to create the program you want.
Price of the land would increase. Maybe you still have to go through the thing at city council to actually cash that check.
I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't specifically specify specific lots. Okay, because when you do that, you have increased the value of the property. But if you say that it's available generically,
Mm-hmm.
then you have not increased the value of the.
Well,
Say we may,
Well-
but it's incidental.
I just wanted a quick side note. Lori, you were going to check. We talked specifically about an outdoor program, like an outdoor dining program or something.
Yes, thank you.
You were going to check if we actually had funds in the EDC.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I had that in my notes and didn't quite get to it. Yeah, so the 30,000 I was mentioning last time was not the correct amount that EDC's been given in the past. I was confusing that with our other program, which is the Community Enhancement Program. That's the one that receives 30,000 a year in funding, or has in the past. And that's a program for nonprofits that are doing good work in the community. Council awards up to 5,000 per applicant for that program. EDC in the past, this committee has had 10,000 funding allocated towards it. Generally, it was used towards community events, I believe. Because we had a tight fiscal year, we do not have any funding allocated for this current fiscal year.
We haven't spent our money.
It does not roll.
Oh,
Last year's went towards the Adventure Fest, I believe. No, it got pulled out because we needed to make the budget work. So in the future, it could be different. EDC's ability to spend money really is through making recommendations on these grant dollars. Yeah,
we're a low maintenance.
Sandwiches about it.
yes.
But could we, Lori, as part of this program, like an offshoot, be that EDC would like to create a outdoor dining program, for instance, and we would specify it, then we would go to council and ask if that would be approved for budget for next year? How would that work?
Yeah, so what you would do then is make it an EDC goal when we do, have our discussion this fall on goal setting, that you would like to make a recommendation for that to the council, whether that would be standalone from like the urban renewal grant program or not, or maybe it's a portion of that. Because I don't know sort of what area you were thinking, but if the dollars were going to be spent in the district, in the urban renewal district, then it could just kind of dovetail into this. If it's a totally separate program, then yeah, you would go the route of it being a goal of this committee to make a recommendation to council to set something like that up.
I had a question. So we have no funding going forward for this calendar year. Could we actually suggest, just so like in the past, we've helped sponsor some community events. We won't have that ability this calendar year, but would it be an appropriate use of urban renewal money to say that's besides construction improvements and aesthetic improvements, that maybe up to $2,500 for community events? Is that an inappropriate use of the money?
It's not increasing, the tax revenue.
Oh, it doesn't have a
for the-
tax revenue. Well,
It also doesn't stay within the district.
Correct.
What's the outdoor dining thing? Why don't I know what this is?
Paul, can you explain the outdoor dining idea
Yeah.
for benefit of the
Yeah.
committee? Thank you.
Sure. So, and I'm sorry I keep bringing up Sandy, but they are an excellent example that the urban renewal agency that we worked with actually told us to look at a while back. So Sandy has a separate program outside of urban renewal, and it's called like increase outdoor dining or initiative or something like that. And it's funded from the general fund, and they allow up to $10,000 to create a outdoor structure that's under the Sandy style. So they give a certain aesthetic look to restaurants, coffee shops, whatever, in order to increase the community feel. So for instance, if you drive through Sandy, you'll see that there's one at the coffee shop. The drive-through coffee actually has a nice outdoor seating area. And then there's probably 4 or 5 restaurants with the same style up and down that street. And so the idea is to get people outside, make it more community focused, get people to, congregate, et cetera. And we have a number of restaurants here. You could look at the Wigwam, you could look at the back of Longfellows, they could have one, lots of different places, but it's a cool program. And it's just, again, it's another enhancement that they're giving back to hopefully increase the value of the town, increase the community feel, et cetera, et cetera. I can send you a link to the actual program to everybody, and you can read about it.
Sure. And I think, and this is what kind of I had said last time too, is just that we would need to see some of these communities. Actually, North Plains just released a similar grant program as well to increase the restaurants in their town. But you really need to, I guess we'd have to identify even to begin with, are there places where this could work? Because for instance, at the Wigwam, part of the reason, the tent has to go, among other reasons, is that they are occupying required parking spaces. So again, with the Longfellows, those parking spaces are required for their use. And so we get into the situation where we don't have, 12-foot wide sidewalks where we can have seating necessarily just because of the built infrastructure as it is now. So
Down Highway 30.
we would need to see where I'm not saying it can't fit somewhere, but in some cases it would be very difficult to just fit in some of those older areas of town that we're talking about, unfortunately.
I mentioned before that in Beaverton, I think it's on First Street that they've closed down.
Yeah,
permanently.
yeah.
And I know that the restaurants came first, or a restaurant or two came first. But now I notice that there's like 2 or 3 new restaurants.
Oh, nice.
So
Really nice.
you build it, you build it, they will come.
Hmm.
That movie.
Yeah. So,
Hmm.
uh, it's not, it shouldn't be up to us to identify whether it's going to work. If you write language into the code that allows someone to make the attempt, and someone.
Yeah, and these are things that we would probably want to look at and include in that scope for a downtown plan is where does this work? How do we encourage that? Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have a lot to talk about. Who's coming to August 7th? You coming to August 7th?
Is it here?
Yes.
6 p.m. though,
6. You'll be there.
6 a.m. for the pre-meeting.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
I got you.
Like what?
Plan? Chat?
I'll probably be on a hiking trail somewhere,
Whatever, it's 6. You'll be napping.
or at a restaurant.
What is on the 6th then?
August 7th is our meeting. So it's our Economic Development Committee meeting with the Urban Renewal Agency to discuss criteria for the Urban Renewal Agency dollars. It's going to be scintillating. Am I moving to 2.4? Because I want to get Josh in.
Oh, yeah.
So we're moving, apparently people want to cancel the August 17th meeting. They said that I already did it, but obviously I didn't because we're voting again.
That is up to the committee.
Do we want to, I'm here. I mean, I feel like we have valuable work to be done. Do we want to forego the August 17th meeting and skip the bagel sandwich for August? Or should we just enjoy ourselves for 1 month?
I'd rather have that meeting and cancel the one near Christmas.
This isn't
Because I think that's gonna-
it will be yet another vote.
Won't be here either way.
August 17th?
Yes. That's what started the conversation last
What
time.
a quitter.
I know.
Here you are. We just put you in a chair.
Who's the vice chair?
So I need a vote. August 17th. Does anybody have any more thoughts other than Carl and Brian?
Things you want to talk about though?
Oh, we'll make the agenda the week before like we always do.
Or we can cancel it out.
Well, this is what it's for. So it's yay or nay. Gentlemen.
Somebody's got to make a motion.
I make a motion.
Second.
Anybody have any other thoughts? Because we're going to vote on it. Keep the meeting.
Yeah.
Look at that. We're in. Hey, Josh, thank you so much for patiently waiting. We are adding you to the agenda. We didn't even vote on you, but I'd love to hear your update. Well, you have to have a microphone. You can sit wherever you'd like. What is happening at OMIC?
Yeah, and I'm actually here today because we had to cancel last minute. We were actually supposed to be meeting with President Biden this morning in Texas to talk about OMIC and other manufacturing collaboration. So unfortunately, he went and did something else.
We are second to.
Yeah, you guys are the number 2. Yeah. So, but we do have. Oh, sorry. Say what?
He didn't make it.
Oh, he didn't. He changed his travel plans, so we're gonna have to rebook for another time. But it will happen. Yeah. We do have 4 new employees that we added to our team. We now have John Elias, Director of Marketing and Communications, Eric Gibson, OMIC Academy Coordinator, Mark Mitchell, our Facilities Manager, and Trent Lamont, a new additive researcher in our facility. So that's 4 new hires. We have an open posting right now for another machining researcher, and we have 2 upcoming postings, one in robotics and one in a we call it grants acquisition because we're part of a university, but it really is just sales to companies for projects for us. We have 4 Oregon Tech interns at our facility right now. These are paid internship programs. Most of them are from local high schools, but all of them are attending Oregon Tech on full ride scholarships that we help them get. We have 6 Oregon State University interns. They're at Portland Community College at the OMIC Training Center right now. After they finish some basics, they'll come over and start doing R&D work with us. 2 of them will be in traditional machining, 2 of them will be in additive 3D printing, and 2 of them will be in robotics. So that'll supplement our existing staff and our ability to get work done, at least through the summer. We've had a couple noteworthy tours of large companies coming through. We have a lot of interest from new and different Boeing groups coming through. Parker Meggitt, which is a large aerospace defense contractor. Acumed, Collins Aerospace, Loophole and Stevens. These are all local companies that have come through and are either doing work with us now or we're getting NDAs put in place. Also including In Situ, who we could be potentially doing work with soon as well. As some of you know, we're currently incubating 2 companies. And so I always like to give them, props. Root Foundation is a company that's doing solar panels, but similar to agrivoltaics where you put solar panels over crops, they're doing solar panels over cattle fields where you have to be worried about cows ramming into your solar panels and damaging them. So they're working on floating solar panels. So kind of cool technology, a lot of words there. And they're the people that are taking up a corner of our property right now working on that mission. Humankind Homes is the second one, and they've started work in our facility now, and we don't charge them for our space or anything like that. Humankind Homes, interesting process. They have a program that looks at a blueprint for a house and then divides the house into Lego bricks. They 3D print the cavities and then pour a mixture of concrete and fly ash and other additives in there that forms these Lego bricks that then can get stacked up on site to build structures. And unlike other 3D printed homes where somebody has to go in and put rebar every so often, they spray something on the inside of the wall that then completely seals it and then does that reinforcement. So there'll be eventually some prototypes popping up around our facility as well. We have some upcoming initiatives. Obviously, we're starting to work with the county on the $814,000 planning grant for the business incubator for the county. So that'll be the OMIC building number 3 is what's projected. We're working with Paul's group on that. So we plan to have that be able to host 5 or 6 incubating companies in the future, as well as offer auditorium space for trainings, events, and potentially things with the county where we can get 250-ish people in one place at one time.
Fantastic.
So we're also in the final contracting stages right now for a 3-year project on the F-15 program with the National Guard Reserves, or Air Force Reserves, sorry. We're currently working to get designated with the Economic Development Agency as a tech hub. The Economic Development Agency is difficult to work with at best, but we think it could be some really good visibility on the federal side for OMIC and for the area. Oak Ridge National Laboratory is probably the foremost leading research organization in manufacturing. They're going to be making a trip out to Oregon State as well as OMIC here in the next couple months. We're going after a couple different grant opportunities for machines and equipment. And then I'm personally going to be going out to several large trade shows and working to get more companies interested in working here with us in this area. So, and part of that is there's some of the work that we get in is core to our mission, and some of it's not quite core to our mission. So what we've been working to try and do, we helped OSU identify. We get a lot of projects from OSU that aren't core to our mission, that local machine shops and things could work with those companies on. So we're starting to do that for our local area too. So we're trying to, when stuff comes into us that's not necessarily our core mission, we're trying to work with local companies to see who in the area could potentially do like fabrication and machining work for some of these projects. So, because we get a lot of requests, and we're trying to, do the best we can with that. And the last thing is, and Lori and Craig and I have already talked about it, but with Humankind Homes, the company building tiny homes with the 3D printing, Eventually, Craig our executive director has this goal of creating some small tiny homes on our site where students can live for a short period of time while they're here in the summer interning with us. And obviously our zoning does not allow that. So hopefully we'll be working with people soon on that.
Where are the 10 students staying right now? Just curious.
A mixture. Some of them are staying with other students one of them will have a parent here locally, and there'll be another student that stays with them. Some of them have an apartment over in Hillsborough area. Yeah, it's hard to get affordable student housing out here.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, so moving on, our next meeting is August 17th. Yay. No, August 7th, then August 17th, August 1st for our 50-year plan. I'm just adding these. September 21st, October 19th. Adventure Fest is August 12th through the 13th. I hope everybody attends that. Let's see, Urban Renewal Agency, we have everything. Okay.
I have a comment. Hello?
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, so I'm on the Columbia Economic Development team, on their marketing team now, working on the new branding initiative that they're doing. So I spent over an hour with the consultant that they're using to brand Columbia County, and their team seems very knowledgeable. So it looks like it's a very, very thought out process that they have going on, which is great. My big ask or my big takeaway was that Scappoose should be completely aligned with what the county is doing with regards to branding. So they're going to probably go toward an outdoor theme of some way, shape, or form, and they're going to have probably a lot of money around it, I'd imagine. And I think it's very important that we're aligned. So whatever our branding is, we should at least be lockstep with what the county is doing. So, I mean, I know NJ was at least part of some of the conversations, but on the bigger picture, we really should be kind of like one step behind, like let them kind of lead a little bit, see where they're going, and then, determine if that's something that we should just be drafting off of. Which we probably save a lot of money on, so we're all aligned, or whatever our decision is, they should be leading because they are, the county, and if the county is going toward more of an outdoor tourism type thing, we should probably be aligned with it. So I have a meeting with them again next week, and I'll come back and update the group, but I think it definitely does influence where the RFP is going with regards to the Scappoose branding.
Did you present this also to council?
Well, it doesn't have to go to council.
No, your thoughts.
My thoughts are that NJ tells Alex that we should do what I just said, and Alex can talk directly to the mayor.
As I always do, Paul.
Joe,
it does not have to go to council. And
no, I just, as like public comment that you were participating in this, I was just asking if council knew that you were participating at a county level. Just curious.
I don't know. But I do know that the very, very similar thing happened in the in another committee that I'm in, and we were going down a certain path, and Alex was thought that we should be holding on something and waiting until something else happens, and she went directly to the mayor and had it, kind of postponed. So if we decide that we should be aligning with the county, that's something that NJ should be able to talk to Alex about, and Alex can talk directly to the mayor about with regards to their thoughts on branding and our alignment with the county.
Okay.
Yeah, Paul, this was so I had a meeting probably with one of the folks that you've been talking with on this project too. And I did ask him, I said, so, Scappoose is entering a branding project as well. How aligned should it be with the counties? And he said, well, think of it like a family, and where like the Columbia County is like your biological parent. Like you might look a lot like your parents, but you don't look exactly like them. So there's certainly going to be coordination and similarities in terms of the outcome, because we're part of Columbia County, and Columbia County surrounds us. So there's certainly going to be coordination and similarities in the brand and the process.
Well, that's not what I was saying. What I was saying is that we look at which direction they go, and then we decide from there, hey, do we ask that same group to, do an offshoot brand for us? Because it should be very aligned. Like, just like fathers and mothers they're first, and then kids happen later. For your analogy.
Right.
The fear is that you hire another company that's completely separated, and then we have two different approaches that don't work together at all, or are tried to be band-aided together. So Columbia County is going to have a lot of resources on this thing. They're going to have a lot of money toward it. It should be the umbrella over the entire county, and we can be a big part of it, but we should be aligned. That's my point. Not just, we know it's happening and we're an offshoot. So my fear is that you're going to spend the citizens' money on a completely separate program that may not align with the county.
Joe?
You need a mic.
Kind of missed it on there between departmental other updates.
We only do every other. Yeah.
Every other month.
I mean, we can talk. Does Heidi have something great to say? We are.
Thank you for your candor.
Yeah, no, Paul, I see what you're saying now. The process of selecting a consultant, did I talk?
I was second.
Okay. The process of selecting a consultant will happen once we have the RFP together and submitted, obviously, and that's I just can't speak to who we're going to select at this point.
Is the county's RFP? Is the county?
We've looked at it as an example.
They submitted.
Yeah, and they
Well,
have the
Same agency. Okay.
Yeah.
And,
My
I mean,
point
we're
is that we might
we're
not
an
need-
advising body for that project, so we could influence it from these seats also.
Yes, or we could slightly postpone ours and then align with the county directly. That's my point.
I think it's a great idea. Okay, so upcoming events, we already did that. If there's anything else, because we're past time, we are 3 minutes, and my obligation is to keep us tight. Good, we're adjourned. Thank you. See how hard this is? Are you ready?
I'm ready for another year watching you take care of it.
Manage Brian.
What? I'm unmanageable. We all know that.